All right, hello everybody, and welcome back to the lab. Hope everyone's been enjoying the interviews thus far. With 2 weeks ago being a net zap about firefighter wellness and preparation, and some different blocks or difficulties in in the field. And then last week's episode with Dave and I about training the unaffected side, maybe post-surgically or maybe in the initial stages of rehab. But today, I figured we haven't had a rant session in a while, so we're gonna have some fun with this. So, as of late, I think a lot of people have been seeing, maybe on Instagram, hybrid fitness or the hybrid athlete, right? So, where people are talking about lifting like a power lifter and then running about maybe as if they're about to go off maybe like a marathon or a half marathon, maybe a 10K, like basically training like a runner and then also training like a power lifter at the same time. So, coined a hybrid athlete. A lot of people are making that really big on Instagram right now. I've seen a few different athletes on their pages, uh, but Brandon and Alex seem to disagree with this nomenclature of the hybrid athlete. So, Brandon and Alex, why don't you guys kind of give me an idea of why you disagree with this label of the hybrid athlete? I'm curious. Please, Brandon, enlighten me. I would love to hear this. I see you already
Well, I
turned
mean,
bright red.
let's just talk about overall just physical fitness for a minute.
Okay.
I mean, a hybrid athlete's just, in a sense, it's just CrossFit. I mean, not really CrossFit, I guess, but
Hmm.
it's a term of people that have a mixture of, let's say, 50% fast twitch, 50% type 2 or slow twitch muscle fibers
Hmm.
that can't really be really good at one thing, can't really be good at the other aspect. So really, they just find that middle ground to make them feel good about themselves. So, and then you can talk about like what is being fit. Okay, so like not taking a shot, but kind of take a shot at Alex here.
No, please go ahead.
Super fucking strong in the weight room at your let's talk about like your peak
Yeah,
powerlifting phase.
absolutely.
Okay, let's super strong, can move a shit ton of weight, and then heart rate would get like 200 pounds if he walked up, or 200 beats a minute if he walked up a flight of stairs.
Hmm.
So, in the aspect of is he physically fit? Probably not. And then you got the other guys that are, freaking VO2 max of like, 70, but couldn't pick up a freaking, an 80-pound box of books or whatever the hell you needed to move upstairs in your house.
Yeah.
Are they physically fit? Questionable. So, like, just because you can lift a lot of weight and still run or have a decently VO2 max doesn't qualify as a hybrid athlete. You're just overall physically fit.
You're more
Yeah.
well-rounded.
Yeah. So you're not on one side of the spectrum versus the other. You're just right there in the middle.
Hmm.
Okay.
And now everybody's just trying to give that a label to help make people feel better.
Yeah.
I can kind of see that. Okay. How about you, Trotter? Let's hear your take on this.
Well, I mean, I agree. Like I've talked with Brandon and numerous athletes like that because all of them want to be, like as strong as they physically can and all this other stuff. Well, like, dude, that's in terms of being absolutely strong in a weight room powerlifting sense, the running's gone. You can't do it. You're talking about getting into like the top 1% of like your said sport.
Hmm.
Like it's not going to happen. You need to gain weight. You need to get bigger. Like
Hmm.
if one thing goes up, another thing's got to come down. Like it's got to be balanced out.
Hmm.
But I also know like yeah, there was many times like when I started getting back into doing cardio and everything like that, Brandon was the one that was like, "Yo, like hold on, like pull it back a little bit," because I was at risk for a heart attack whether I knew it or not, and whether I wanted to believe it or not. Because yeah, when I was at my peak, like my resting heart rate was in the 90s,
Hmm.
and it wasn't great. And then like yeah, if I would walk across the gym or walk out from like the old office to the other side of the gym or whatever, it
Hmm.
wasn't unlikely for it to go to like 150 to 170 just walking.
Just walking?
Yeah. I mean, when I was in the condo, like walking up 3 flights of stairs, like I was sweating and out of breath.
Holy
I
cow.
could I could do it continuously, but like it took effort.
Shit, man.
But yeah, I agree. Like, I would say if you're wanting to be like a true hybrid athlete, then you should look at like a professional football player, for
Mhm.
example. AJ is a great example. He's strong as shit and he can still run and still move. But again, look at the the body of work that he's had to do for the last decade, 2 decades.
Mhm.
I mean, maybe not 2 decades because that puts him at like 8 years old. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. This hybrid thing is to just make people feel as if like they're at the top 1% of their realm
Mhm.
of fitness, which is just not true. Like you sucked at everything that you did growing up and you suck as an adult. It just is what it is. The more that you just realize that and the more that you just stay in your lane instead of just trying to create new avenues to little
Mhm.
catchphrases and sales tactics, because
Mhm.
that's what I think it is. Hybrid athlete is just it's bullshit.
No,
Yeah, I
I
mean, there's nothing like it's impressive as shit to go ahead and hit a like the thing that was going around was like, can you deadlift 500 pounds and go right into a and still get a
Mhm.
5 minute mile? Like do all that in under 5 minutes? Impressive as hell.
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yeah.
not like that's amazing as shit. Like I'm not downgrading like what they do, but like just to put
Mhm.
a label on something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I know like we challenged ourselves as like our little group of powerlifters at one point. I didn't do it because I was still like in the mode of trying to get into a meet. So, there's pros and cons to all of that. But we did like it was a 5 plate deadlift, so 500 pounds essentially, a 4 plate squat, a
Mhm.
3 plate bench, a, a 2 plate overhead press, and then you had to run a mile. And you got to
Okay.
try to get that in under 10 minutes was like the goal.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean that's pretty hybrid, I would say, because there's a ton of male adults that can't even bench 225, let alone overhead press.
Yeah. True. Very true. No, I definitely agree with you guys in the fact that it's the hot new thing right now where people are saying they're a hybrid athlete. People are putting that. I mean, heck, I just found one of the guys in particular that I was kind of like when we wanted to talk about this initially. His Instagram page kind of came up right away. His name's Marcus Hunt. I mean, even in his bio, he's run 18 times marathon slash ultra. He has a 720-pound conventional deadlift, 405 bench, 610 squat, and then of course, right at the very bottom, he's selling hybrid workouts. So I
Yeah.
mean, there's definitely like a marketing scheme behind it all, and I mean, he's using his own personal experience to kind of market the hybrid athlete. So like, if you look at him, the guy's got a ton of great material on there.
Oh yeah.
Um, but I
But
mean,
he's a freak of nature
he's
at the same
maybe
time.
like maybe the
That
top 5% of what that would be, right?
Yeah, I mean
it just
that dude could do
Hmm.
5x5 on every single exercise, and he would still get great results. He's genetically gifted.
Hmm.
You always have to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
but you're still working basic strength training. You're still working basic cardiovascular system. You're
Yep.
not
Nothing,
doing anything fancy. You're just
nothing new.
trying to a reinvent the wheel
Yep.
in a sense when it's still a circle and it still goes around.
Kind of like a rant on functional fitness, right?
Right. It's same
There's
thing.
no, yeah, it's kind of the new fad. It's what people are marketing it. They can make a big gain of it on social media. So I mean, if you can get like a ton of followers because this is like the new thing that's going to get you results right away, it's like, well, man, if I start running, 2-3 miles every single week or every single day, and then I'm also including like my powerlifting program, I too could be this guy that looks, jacked as heck. Um, Not the case. Not the case.
No, not 9 times out of 10. That's all too hard for the average human being and the average go getter too. Which I
Yeah.
mean, I guess that kind of plays into the role of like linear block periodization, like to split all that up.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I mean, you're if you're taking something, you got to give something.
True. You only have so much of
I,
the cup available.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
yeah. I mean, ah, it's the new way of trying to everybody get the athlete looking body in a sense of what CrossFit was 10 years
Yeah.
ago.
True. I mean, there's always that new the new workout program, that new type of training, the new form of whatever you want to call it, that someone's trying to capitalize on. I mean, yeah, he of course he has his own app and it's got his hybrid workouts on it. So yeah.
Yeah. Where I mean, like at the end of the day, that's like it's like an NFL player coming back and marketing in a camp or marketing speed and agility stuff or marketing, whatever else. It, he's a top 1%. Like people have to understand that. And there's just like there's a different I think there's a different level of mentality when it comes to it as well. Because I mean, there's a different mentality that you have to have like when doing conditioning as far as like running and stuff like that goes.
Hmm.
And then there's a different mentality that you have to have with like lifting. It's different because things go wrong on lifting. Like when you're in those high numbers, like there's a serious injury that's going to happen.
Hmm.
I'm not talking just like a pulled muscle or something like that. Like that shit's going to get torn off the bone.
Yeah, that's definitely a man. How many people do you think could like go throughout the week through? Hey, buddy, it's so big.
Oh.
How many people do you think could go through like a week of powerlifting and then incorporate, let's say, 10 miles of running in a week, right? Be
Slim
pretty
to
hard to
none.
do. I was gonna say that's a lot of volume all in one week. I mean, especially if you have someone who's brand new to training, and like try a hybrid fitness program, it's gonna be pretty difficult.
Uh, yeah. Yeah, but I almost feel as if they would have one of the greatest chances to survive it because that's all they know. Like
True,
their body's just going to adapt. It's either going to adapt or break.
true. I'm glad that Peyton
Yeah,
is
just
with all of us. This is great.
Yeah.
he's got his muscle shirt on. He's ready to go.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, that dude's been a happy kid this week,
Yeah.
at least at the gym.
But it could be. I mean, the split could be a little easier. You could do a. You're talking 2 day split. You're talking 1 day strength training, 1 day cardio, just getting into it, or 2 days doing one thing, 1 day do the other. You're going to get cardiovascular benefits through lifting weights. You're just not going to get the strength portion through cardiovascular. So you can
Yeah.
definitely hammer one more than the other and still see the benefits on the other side. So
True, true. I remember like if anything, the more I kind of looked into the hybrid workouts, the more I realized it was almost like training like a rugby player. Because like I remember we would have weightlifting, we'd have running, like crazy amounts of running, especially during the summertime. I remember when I stayed at UD over the summer, I ran probably the most I've ever run in my entire life. And then also doing all the workouts and then going to practice on top of that. So like, um, or just going out to the Shiloh Park and it was just a lot. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, you're just training like an athlete. I mean, in all honesty, I definitely think you guys are right. Kind of wanted to sucker Brandon into thinking he was going to have this huge disagreement with me, but wanted to get him hyped up somehow. No, but I agree with you guys. I think hybrid is it's just the new fad. That's really all I'm seeing it as. I mean, but going back to like kind of like putting a name to it, like what you guys were talking about, where like Trotter, you were freakishly strong. I shouldn't say were, you're still pretty freaking strong. But
In relation. Yeah.
yeah, but like thinking about like that's a specialist, like someone who's really honed in on that attribute of overall like well-being, right?
Oh, it consumed my life. I mean, you
Exactly.
can ask like my wife. We didn't go on hikes. We did no physical activity outside of like the gym or like working.
Hmm.
Like if I wasn't sleeping, I was eating.
Hmm.
There was constant water. Like sleep was a huge thing. Like I had a bed. Like I'm a grown ass adult. I got a bedtime. I wake up at the same time. Like it is monotonous. You
Hmm.
know.
No, I
So yeah,
agree.
I don't think like that's the other thing that people don't understand too. Like if you're gonna add this hybrid athlete into the mix, then you have to add like all of the extra recovery stuff now in too.
Yeah.
So good luck balancing a full time job or going to school or anything like that. Like it's hard.
That's gonna be a lot. I mean, that's why I was kind of curious. So like we could even let's I want to take a segue. So kind of getting away from like the hybrid athlete, like like specialist athletes, right? So we just started like powerlifting and going 110% into like being as strong as possible. And then like if
Yep.
you were gonna have someone who's gonna go like the exact opposite paradigm, Brendan, you already labeled it down as like a distance runner, someone who has like an insane VO2 max, has the ability to just run for like hours on end. I mean, some of the ultra marathons just look like death,
Brutal.
like absolute death. But like then you were to ask them to pick up a barbell, it'd probably be pretty hard for them. Some of them are probably, if they're going to be really efficient, doing some form of strength training, but that's not going to be where they're going to spend majority of their time. You want to be a good runner, you have to spend time running, right?
Mhm.
Hey, dude. So then kind of going into that, like the hybrid type of training might not be a good overall type of training for one athletes. Probably, I mean, if you're doing a whole bunch of distance running and that's what you're doing and powerlifting with that, um, what sport could you even apply that to? Maybe aside from rugby. I mean, rugby would probably be like a great way to use a hybrid type training program. But again, you still have to have incorporation of like sprint training, which from what I've seen on, well, I mean, I haven't really been able to look at his app because you have to pay for it. It says it's free, but not necessarily.
Mhm.
But like some of these hybrid training programs that you might see are going to vary based off maybe even the person. So like I've seen a lot, it basically looks like a lot of distance running and training, and then you have a lot of heavy lifting. It's like I'm not really seeing a whole lot of sprint training involved in that. I'm sure there's someone out there that does that, but not to the maybe the amount that I would like to have seen or have been able to come across myself. Um, so that's maybe something to kind of talk about as well is hybrid training is probably not great for your football players. It's probably not great for your track athletes, unless you maybe are a distance runner. Um, so like those are things to also take into consideration as well. Because I mean, if you have this huge new fad thing that's coming out, you want to make sure people are educated on it instead of just like, oh, this is going to be in crazy shape just because this guy's absolutely ripped out of his mind or this girl's ripped out of her mind. They had great success. I'll have great success, and then all of a sudden they go to run and now they have like worst performance in their sport. It's like,
CrossFit.
uh,
Just less barbell movement
Yeah.
and Olympic lift styles, I guess.
yeah. I mean, the Olympic lifts would, I mean, if you had a hybrid athlete, I mean, I haven't seen Olympic lifts in a hybrid program so far. It looks like a lot of more of like a powerlifting type base, but no.
I mean, that is what an Olympic lift is, just broken down even more into, three parts or what have you. We've gone on plenty of lectures of that.
Hmm. I said we talked on that
But
before.
but I mean, just even with like our distance runners, we're still applying a a strength portion in powerlifting style, if you will. I think that's where people like get it all mad. Like just because like you're doing a 1 to 3 rep max, you're a power lifter now. No, it's not the case at all. Like we're just building the absolute strength, and then on the back end, on their dynamic days, we're building a speed strength,
Hmm.
or a strength endurance. Because like that was one of our that we talked about in the distance runners. Like
True.
that's all I had him do. His second day was purely strength endurance,
Hmm.
and he shaved like 20 seconds or something ridiculous off his mile time. Granted, he's
Hmm.
still in like the newbie game phase, so we have to see where that goes.
True. But you're not calling him a hybrid athlete.
No, and he doesn't call himself that. He knows better.
Smart boy.
I don't even what numbers would you consider to be classified as a hybrid athlete? Like what's your squat number, what's your bench number, what's your deadlift number, what's your mile time? Or what is like your 40 time or a 100-yard dash time, something like that. I think that'd be good.
Well, if I would consider a hybrid athlete a real thing,
Yeah, if you were.
I'd probably have to go 500 deadlift, at least a 425, 450 squat, 250 to 300 bench press, and sub 5 mile.
Sub 5? Whew.
Granted, that sounds like death.
Yo. I mean, that should be
Sub
that should be
6.
the that
Sub
should be the
6.
standard before you can put a hybrid athlete in your bio.
Man, yeah. So like there's so many different definitions. So this one comes from Built for Athletes. So it's difficult to pin down in a pithy one-liner, but by my own definition, a hybrid athlete is an individual who's committed within the body of a training plan or paradigm, working across the full range of strength and endurance training with a goal to progressing in all aspects and maximizing recovery while minimizing any potential interference. So I guess you could go back into like the old studies where
That's so vague.
I
That
know, but
is
like
so vague. That is
look,
just like, oh
so
hey, eat, sleep, and work out. Cool. You did
so
it.
if you want, I'm trying to think of what the study was from back in the 80s. Let me see if I can find it.
Pick
Uh,
up something heavy and then go for a long run. Recover after that.
so
That's
like,
just fitness, man. That's nothing special.
no, it really isn't anything different. But I think what he's kind of getting at is the fact that I was some study back in the 1980s where like they did some form of like combination of training between like I think it was aerobic training and then strength training. And they found that there was like an interference effect where like if you did strength training and incorporated that, you would kind of like hit a plateau in both much sooner than if you went all in one on another. And it's like, first of all, no crap, right? So like
Yeah.
that's what people would say if you did too much aerobic training, you would lose all your gains, right? Uh, so I'm wondering if maybe that's also where it stems from, is the fact that dude, you are having way too much fun outside.
He's having a good time.
Yeah, he is. Um, so I
No,
guess
you're
that's
just
where it comes
you're
from.
just basically making your life longer, like longevity. You're able to, you
Yeah.
have a good, strong muscle or bone density. You're able to, pick up things around the house you need to be able to pick up. Your cardiovascular system is high. You have a good, you know, blood's pushing through the arteries. You have a low resting heart rate. It's stuff they've been talking about since the
Yeah.
moment fitness came out to help long your life. Yeah.
Yeah, here it
Like
is.
I within like the last year done a few sessions with Brandon as far as like conditioning and stuff goes, just
Mhm.
so like he can kind of monitor me so I don't die. But my heart rate, like my resting heart rate is almost half of what it used to be. It usually sits in like the low 50s now.
Sure.
But my strength is tanked.
Well, you're not a specialist anymore, are you?
No. But
You're
it
working
is
on other
pretty cool feeling great 24 hours a day. That's pretty neat.
aspects. Staircase is no longer instill
Yeah.
fear in Alex.
Rather than just feeling like Superman for 2 hours out of your day, and the rest you feel like a fat lord.
Oh, I found it's the interference effect. That's basically what their people are kind of capitalizing on, is the fact that now you can do the compatibility of concurrent aerobic and strength training to basically maximize skeletal muscle size as well as function. So yeah, I might even tag this one because actually this is actually on Stronger by Science, so I might even put this one up with the episode when it drops. Because I definitely think that's worth the read. I mean, that's definitely worth looking into because back in the day, people used to think that if you were going to go out and run a few miles and you couldn't be strong in the gym, you're just going to lose your gains. But yeah,
You got to find what works for you.
exactly.
So try it all. Yeah. My
Yeah.
big piece of advice is just dive in. Whatever it is, just blindly trust that shit, I guess.
Oh,
See if it works.
I mean, you
If it
won't know.
doesn't,
Don't go jumping ship between programs or anything like that. But I mean, like if you're going
yeah,
to,
I mean, give everything a try.
yeah, give it an
Like,
extended period of time to try it too.
right.
Don't just do like
Like,
2 weeks and be like, I'm done with this shit.
yeah.
Like stick
Like
with
I was very blessed, and I was told like good advice when I first started getting into powerlifting
it. Mhm.
is try whatever program that you're going to do it for a year, and
Yeah,
then analyze it.
yeah. I think a
You
year
got
is
to
a
give it
long
a year.
time, but I don't
It's
know.
so long,
Who told you the year though? I'm curious.
Laura.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, that makes sense then. I mean, I would still be curious. A year still sounds like a long time.
yeah, very much. But I mean, it gives you a few like if you're going to compete in powerlifting, you should compete like when you're a newbie, like 2 to 3 times a year, because you need to have those testers to figure out what
Right.
your testers are, what your builders are.
Okay.
But if you're jumping from one program to the next, you know, let's say that you were doing conjugate at first, after 3 months you switch to linear, and now all of a sudden your numbers go whoop. Well, was it the linear or was it just the back date from all the conjugate stuff that you did and all the base building? It's hard to say. You don't know. You got to take that variable out. Just like in running, you know, like if you're running 10 miles a week and your 2 mile time isn't going anywhere, so you bump it to 15 and suddenly your 2 mile goes down a little bit, maybe that's your sweet spot. And then you go to 20 miles a week and then suddenly your mile or 2 mile time's back up. Well, you got to scale it back down. I think people just don't think for themselves like that either.
No, you're coming from a coach's perspective, man.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like as an ex-athlete, that mindset is what helped set me apart.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because like, yeah, I was to my own horn, I was skilled in a lot of things, but I wasn't great or stood out like crazy. Like I was no 5-star athlete, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But just being able to have that open mind and try to attack the different ways to figure out how to win, I guess. I don't know. Thanks, Pink. I'm glad you agree.
So nasty, right? No, but I think one thing we could maybe even talk in a little bit more about the hybrid athlete would be if you are going to be adding in the combination, like we kind of already stated, like the recovery aspect of things. If you do have a 40-hour work week, you know, is that truly feasible for you to be adding in that much more to your plate, right? I'm just curious. Thoughts on what would be like a good place to start if someone who's maybe got like, you know, they've got the bodybuilding portion of things down, what would be like a base entry point for running, Brandon and Alex? I'm curious. Because like if you had someone who was like, yeah, you know, maybe I wanted to try that hybrid athlete thing, but you know, maybe it's not for me. I've got like the bodybuilding and like the weight training part down. Like if someone who's never run before, like included like endurance running in their programs before, like where do you have to like pick and choose on where you're going to sacrifice? Like, do you sacrifice isolation moves and just do like maybe 1 or 2, maybe even 3 compound and then add in a little bit of, like base conditioning, like a long, slow distance once or twice a week? I don't know why I keep getting the thumbs up thing, but I do.
I would keep the compound movements as the main. Maybe depending on use your isolations for your main things like your calves or your hip flexors or hamstrings isolation. And then if you're just getting into running, you start with the classic, you know, maybe set like a 20-second jog window, and then maybe you kind of just challenge your work to rest ratio. So maybe you'll go 20-second jog, you know, 40-second, 20-second, whatever the work, 1-to-1, 1-to-3, walk, run, walk, and then you know you just slowly go from a 20-second jog to a 30-second jog to a minute jog, and then maybe you start kind of going away from time. Then you start going into, all right, I'm going to try to jog a half or a quarter mile, and you know maybe walk 30 seconds and a quarter mile, or you know half miles, things like that.
Okay.
Until you're able to reach that full. Well, that's how I kind of did with one of my clients now, and you know, he was 350 pounds, and now he's down to 240 something, and now he's running almost sub 10-minute mile paces at 4 or 5 miles. So and that's kind of what we did. We started with a work to rest ratio of time, and then we went from time to distance, and now he's a full jog at all time.
That's pretty sweet. Pretty sweet. Yeah, no, I like that. Okay. Anything else you guys want to add?
Don't do drugs.
Thank you for that. Drink plenty of milk as well.
Hear that, buddy? Drink your milk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
No, well, I hope you guys all enjoyed today's episode about the hybrid athlete. But we will see you all in the next episode. All right, guys, enjoy.